So I'm currently at work, but let's talk about something real quick. You know that feeling when your creativity just hits a wall? Whether you're like drowning in deadlines or you're juggling a team or, even trying to stay inspired by yourself. It's frustrating, right? But what if I told you there's a way to kind of break through that and actually thrive as a creative? And that's what we're going to talk about. Now, we know that creatives can get stuck for a number of reasons, whether you're working solo, leading a team, or reporting to someone else. There are challenges. But the good news is that each role has its own strategies to help you stay on track and, keep creating. So let's dive into what that actually looks like. Let's start with the solo creator or the self-managed creative. The struggle is that, you know, you manage everything yourself and you can get overwhelmed. But what are some tips? Let's see. A tip that I would say is to break down your bigger projects into like smaller pieces. If you have big projects that have wide scopes and you have to worry about logistics and you also have to, brainstorm and you also have to script write and you also have to film and shot list, break it down into smaller pieces, and by doing that you can focus fully on specific tasks, whether that be the script writing, and you would take the whole scope and just throw it away, not literally throw it away, but just take the whole scope and just focus on script writing for the moment. And once you're fully done script writing and revising and script writing and revising, then you would go on to the next part. Okay, budgeting. Okay, we go budgeting. Or casting and we go casting. Or shot listing and we go shot listing. And just focusing on those specific elements and nothing else. Another tip that I would give you would be to build a flexible day-to-day routine or structure. Building a structure or a routine can sometimes be stifling because you try to hold yourself specifically to this and nothing else. And that's where the keyword flexibility comes into play. You want to build yourself a flexible routine so that, let's say, things do happen in your day, you're not thrown aback by it. Okay, I have some wiggle room in my routine where I can maybe push this off a little bit later or do a little bit earlier, or maybe it's not a super top priority, so I can push that back a day and focus on what just popped up. And so building that flexible routine can really help you as a solo creative. And another tip could be to take breaks and rest. I know plenty of creatives that do not rest nearly as much as they should be, and that can actually hurt you a lot. And by rest, I don't mean just sleeping or taking power naps or any of that. Honestly, by rest, I mean taking time away from what it is you do. And as creatives, we think, oh, well, if I'm not doing what it is that I'm good at doing, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. And that's not necessarily true. I fully believe that apart from rest, you can't do anything. If you're not resting, you're not going to be good at what you do. And you may think that you are good at what you do, but you're not going to be better than someone who's doing what they love doing and resting. You're just not, because they're going to be happier. They're going to have more energy. They're going to be doing things with more of a passion because they're coming from a place of rest. They're working from rest and they're not working for rest. So there's a bit difference there. So those are a few tips that I would say for the solo creative or the self-managed creative to help yourself out, would be to break down your bigger projects into small projects, create a flexible routine or structure, and then also take take rests. I mean, if never mind, I'm not gonna say that. Take rest. Okay. The next one would be to the person that's leading a team of creatives, a creative that's leading other creatives. What's the problem there? The problem there is that you're balancing leadership with creativity and, with creative freedom in a team. You're creative, they're creatives, but you also need to be a leader. And so there's certain things certain switches you need to hit on and turn off, consistently. And it's not easy. You want to be able to create a balance between the team objectives, but also the team's creative freedom. So what can you do? Well, number one, you can set clear goals, but also give room for your team to innovate. So, for example, if you have a project that's goal is to revitalize a brand, your goal would be to make sure the owner feels that his brand has been revitalized, for example. Not the best example. But anything beyond that, the team has creative freedom to accomplish that goal. And so that would be, picking different color schemes or trying out new font logo types, fonts, experimenting with as much as possible, as long as the client at the end of the day feels like his brand has been revitalized in a good way. And so you want to have the goals, but apart from the goal, give them the creative freedom to get to that goal. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's something you can do as a leader of creatives to help your creatives feel more creative of sorts. Another tip would be to give your team constructive feedback consistently. It's constructive feedback that motivates, not discourages. It's not critique, it's constructive feedback. And what constructive feedback to me, what that looks like is if somebody looks at the work that I'm doing, you start with a praise. You always want to start with a praise, because if you start with anything else, you're just going to let them down. Not let them down, you're just going to make them feel down. But you start with a praise. Hey, that's super innovative. That's a unique logo, or that's a bold color choice. I love the direction you're heading in. But can we maybe refine? And from there, from the praise, then you go into the feedback. And again, with the first tip, you let them have the creative freedom to get to that goal. So if you say you want something more, innovative, or you want something that looks more bold, you give them the creative freedom to get to that point. You're not just stifling them and telling them, hey, no, it needs to be better. You need to change this color to this color. You don't want to give feedback like that. You want to be, kind of open when you give the feedback, and let them really get to that epiphany themselves. That'll be a really good way to give constructive feedback that motivates and not discourages. Another tip I guess you could give is to celebrate the wins. Many times I've been a part of teams where we don't celebrate the wins. We do something and we just keep pushing forward onto the next thing. And it's actually quite demoralizing. You're working so hard and you feel like you make progress, but no one acknowledges that progress, and you just keep pushing forward and you almost feel like you don't know where you're going. You're pushing forward, but you don't know where you're going. And so taking time to celebrate the small wins really helps your team feel refreshed, revitalized, remotivated, and helps them want to keep pushing forward with you. If you're not doing this, if you're not celebrating the small wins with your team, you're going to have a burnt out team really fast. And it's not going to be good, speaking from experience. So, yeah. Next, I guess we could talk about the creative who's being managed, or the creative who's in that team under someone. That's the hardest position to be in, if we're being real. The struggle is that it's hard to stay creative while you're working under somebody else's vision. Every creative has their own vision of how they want things to go. And so anytime they have to be under someone else, I keep hearing stuff, it's weird. Anytime they have to be under someone else, it's stifling to their creative vision, or to their creativity in general. So tips that I would give you as a former creative who was not a former creative, but a creative who was in a position like that before, would be to communicate clearly. You can never communicate too much. If you are not communicating enough, you're going to leave room for friction. Whereas if you communicate, you iron out those wrinkles, you get rid of all that friction up front. You want to ask ideas and you want to ask questions and share ideas. Ask questions, share ideas. That way you can be on the same page with whoever you're working under. It's just, why do people keep texting me? Anyways, it's always good to ask questions, talk as much as possible. I'm the type where if I don't communicate, I'm not going to do the work. Like, someone could tell me they want a project done, and I'm like, well, until we sit down and talk for 2 hours, I'm not going to get started on this project, because I need to know exactly where you're coming from, what your goals are, what your motivations are, what you want from this project. And if I don't have that, I'm not going to act on it, because I'm not going to do work and then afterwards be completely off the mark because we failed to communicate. So that's just something that, I've learned. You also don't want to overthink sometimes. Sometimes, listen to me, sometimes, not all the times, done is better than perfect. Okay, hear me out. Done is better than perfect. How did I learn this? I, with my own work, look for the most excellence. I wouldn't say perfectionism, because I'm not perfect, but I would look for the most excellent work that I could do. If I saw something that needed to be touched, I'm on it. But working under someone else, I found that their vision, especially if they're not as creative as I am, doesn't really have the same expectation that I have for myself. And sometimes I would create something as a draft and show it. They're like, that's perfect, let's roll with this. And I'm like, wait a minute, this was just a draft. Like, this is not even, but I wouldn't say that. I would just think that to myself. And I'll be like, okay. And this is how I learned that sometimes done is better than perfect. Because I'm like, well, that's unnecessary. Anyway, sometimes I'll be like, sometimes I gotta like, knock out this, straighten out some of this, do this, touch up this. And they're like, I love this, let's roll with it. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, let's roll with it then. And that keeps me from being burnt out. That kept me from, having to do unnecessary work in my eyes. They thought it was fine, so let's roll with it. So sometimes done is better than perfect. Yes, that is very true. And then the last thing, I guess, for someone who's working under someone, is to embrace the feedback. It's actually a tool to help you grow. It's not there to hinder you. It's not there to hold you back. It's a tool to help you grow. And once you shift your mindset on feedback to it's a tool for me to grow, and you embrace that feedback, you really start to not even take anything personally, because I know as creatives we tend to take our work of art, our masterpieces, our craft, the work that we do, we tend to look at it like our babies. We nurture it so much, we put so much time and effort and energy into this, that how could you dare say that it's not this or it's not that? And so once you stop thinking that way and you're like, okay, this is just another thing that I'm doing, obviously not taking the passion out of it, because your passion should be in the process and not in the final product. But once you start focusing on, okay, maybe I can do this better. Like, yes, I love the way it looks, but I wonder if I do what they're telling me to do. If I take the feedback they're telling me, I wonder if I can take that with my own spin and make something even better than I would have thought originally. So embrace that feedback. It's a tool to help you grow. So, with that being said, there's many things that all creatives can do better. We're not perfect, and so I think we really need to embrace the fact that we're not perfect. Yes, we are creative, but that doesn't mean that we are perfect. And so we should, if we're working under someone, acknowledge that collaboration is better than sometimes working solo. And if we're working alone, we need to understand that we need to have patience with ourselves in the process. So where do you fit in? Are you flying solo or leading a team or working with a manager? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your experiences. And remember, no matter your role, creativity is about progress. It's about the process. It's not about perfection. So keep going. And until the next one. Peace.